Welcome back to the Point of Order podcast, an inside look at California politics in the state legislature. I am your host, Assemblyman Josh Hoover, and really excited to be joined today by a special guest, Jeff Randle, founder of Randle Communications. Jeff has, I was going to say you've been around for a long time, but
that's true.
That sounds, Jeff has over 30 years of political media and communications expertise in the private and the public sector. Randle Communications has been a major player in California politics for a long time. Jeff, welcome to the program, and thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. I mean, why don't we start? Well, we'll start with, I'll ask you more about Randle, and you can tell us a little bit more about the history of Randle Communications and how all that came about. But this episode is going to release in early July, but I got to ask you, because we're recording it right after Father's Day. So how was your Father's Day?
Well,
and did you do anything special?
No, Josh. Well, I shouldn't say no. That's unfair.
Because your kids are
my kids are older. We're empty
right?
nesters,
Okay.
So my kids are spread across the country. So it was a little sad Father's Day for me. I've got one. My oldest is in Dallas, and my middle son is in Chicago, and my youngest is in New York. So we were not able to get together for Father's Day. My wife and I were actually get together yesterday either.
Oh, wow.
So I went and saw my mom, who still lives in Los Angeles in the same house I grew up in, small little house, and she's almost 90 years old, and went and saw her for Father's Day. And
well, that's pretty special.
It was. So I didn't mean to minimize that. It is sad as a father. I know you have 3 kids.
Totally. But it's different in different seasons, right?
It is. It is. And when your kids are all over the country, you look for opportunities to get together.
Yeah.
And it's not always things like Father's Day, because things are happening. But we do like a summer vacation, and we're doing a big thing in July. So we kind of put off that celebration. Yeah. But there is that momentary, like, where are my kids today? Where you grow up being, as I know you are, with 3 kids in the household, being a dad is your number one responsibility.
Totally. Yeah.
And when you get to Father's Day, you're a little bit sad you don't have your kids, but
absolutely.
I did get to talk to all of them, and they're all doing great, and they're all super happy living in their big cities, and they're doing really, really well.
I love it. Well, that's good. It's good to know what I have to look forward to.
You do.
I got my 3 teenagers at home right now.
You do.
So,
you do.
I'm sure that'll be happening before I know it. But I just made.
And it does. I know everybody tells you, but it does. I mean, you have a 17-year-old, I know.
Yeah.
It goes by fast.
Yeah.
And even when you're looking back now at this point in my life, you got to just stop a little bit, because the blur of day-to-day being father and parents is so tough, but you got to stop and really enjoy having your kids in the household.
Yeah, no, it's pretty great. We did a lot this weekend. We went to dinner Saturday, and then I made them go to the movies with me last night. So.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
What'd you see?
They can never agree on anything anymore,
Yeah.
So I'm like, you know what? I'm giving you guys 3 options, and then you can
There you go.
you guys can pick.
If you try streaming, nobody can agree, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
What did you pick?
We saw Disclosure Day, which is this new Spielberg alien movie.
And it's gotten kind of panned. How was it?
I would say that it was good. I would say our family gave it at least 1 thumb up. Like, I don't know about 2. But
entertaining.
It's a different take on the whole alien thing.
Yeah.
And it was, well, actually, I should say it's different take from the perspective, but the alien stuff in it is very like traditional.
Like old school, you mean traditional?
Yeah, like Roswell, New Mexico,
really?
Like kind of that. So it's all based on that sort of stuff. So it's
interesting.
He doesn't take a lot of risks.
That's not what I thought this was going to be.
Yeah, which I mean, it's just that instead of it being about contacting aliens, it's just about the government, forcing the government to disclose aliens.
Oh, interesting. So that's the tack. I didn't realize that. Everybody was expecting ET or something,
exactly.
right? Yeah,
I was too. And then I'm like, this is really different. But it wasn't bad. It was good.
Yeah.
So,
but I know you're 17-year-old, so you're looking at colleges and stuff next year.
We are. Yeah. That's kind of going to be my summer project with my son. Is we're working through all that right now, and.
It's tough these days. The admissions process is not. We did it 3 times and we did very well, but man, it's changed a lot.
I'm not enjoying it so far.
It's not so fun.
It's a lot. This is my first time though, so we'll see how it goes.
We got through the first one. I was like, oh man, we got to do this 2 more times, And it worked out great. Our oldest went to Vanderbilt, and our 2 youngest went to Notre Dame. Yeah. But it's a process, man. It's a process, and it's a lot for the parents too. So good luck. Let me know if I can provide any advice.
I might text you. We'll see. Yeah, I'll be like,
I've always run into this. My second career, I want to be a college counselor.
I mean, there's a need for it. I know
there really is.
It's intimidating. So I'll have you tell us a little about Randle. But so this episode, obviously. We're going to do a little postmortem on the primary election, specifically the governor's race. I also want to talk to you about some of the I would say, electoral reforms that we've passed over the last couple decades. That kind of get your opinion on what you think, how you think those have gone, and what you think the future of those are. But before we do, tell us a little bit about Randle Communications. Yeah. I know you guys are celebrating 25 years.
25 years.
Which is super exciting. I mean, that's amazing.
It is. It's a lot of reflection, Josh. It really is. 25 years. Think about it this way. I always say, and we've talked about this a lot, is we started our business before 9/11 happened. We started our business before there was an iPhone. We started our business before there was social media.
I mean, that's pretty
That's
incredible.
how far it goes, So the sustainability of that, and as being the member of the legislature, they don't make it easy to run a business in this state.
Totally.
So 25 years of excelling, running a great firm with a great team. I'm very proud of that, obviously. But I came up, I went to UCLA, fellow Bruin, go Bruins.
Yeah, go Bruins.
Started out my career working for this guy who was then a U.S. Senator, Pete Wilson.
Yep.
Started my first day there, my career. I did an internship there, then they hired me, and I had the lowest of the low jobs, and you'll know casework, right?
Yep.
I was doing immigration casework. That was it, just immigration casework. So I'm proud of the fact that I worked my way up and I really fell in love with the politics of the business, not so much the policy, the politics. And then, of course, he ran for governor in 1990, and I helped lead that campaign. And that's what really got me engaged in the politics, and I really wanted to work for a chief executive, and I really admired how he worked. We can talk more about that later, because so much of what's happening today started with things that he did and started. Yeah. But I loved the campaign side. So, worked for him for 8 years, went off for 1 year when he ran for re-election in 94, which I'm very proud of because, as I was saying earlier, when we were just talking briefly, we had a $50 billion budget back in 1990 when Pete Wilson took office, and there was a $16 billion shortfall. So basically a third of it. Yeah. So the first couple of years was crisis, trying to deal with the budget. And it was tough. And he did everything that was right, including some tax increases that people didn't love, but it ended up being a compromise with the legislature. But what it did is it built us a steep hill for re-election in 1994. And we were actually down by 23 points at one point, heading into our re-elect in 94. So I was the first person to go off and set up the re-election campaign in 94. We got the team up and running. We had a machine for a team. We had just a fantastic campaign team, and won re-election by 10 points. So we came back and smoked Kathleen Brown. Yeah. So then I worked as a deputy chief of staff in the governor's office for the last 4 years, and I was basically the political guy internally. I had all external relations, all coalition building. When the governor decided he wanted to do something, I was the guy responsible for building the coalition to get it done. Whether it was class size reduction or 3 strikes or whatever. So I got to work on really important, consequential issues, and I got to build the support to make those things a reality. So it was a very, very rewarding 8 years, and just admired him so much. He worked so hard. In 1998, though, I realized this was going to come to an end at some point. I was kind of done with that whole thing. So I got offered a job over at Storza, what was then called Storza, Zegas, Metzger & Hunt, which was the largest independent PR firm west of the Mississippi. And I was like, that's a good thing to go do for a little while, because I know that I really wanted to start my own business. I was an entrepreneur coming out of there, and I wanted my own business because I wanted to do my own clients. I wanted to do it my way. But I knew I didn't know how to run a business. And so I went to work for Storza for 3 years and really learned how to run a business, how you had to price things, how you engaged clients, how you got clients, how you kept clients, how you looked at a profit and loss, everything, about running the business side of it. And then in 2001, I had the opportunity to start my own business in Sacramento. Basically, I bought the Sacramento office of Storza and made it Randlecom. So that was the beginning of Randlecom in 2001. We started with 7 people, this teeny little shop, and we've built ourselves up into the #1 independent public relations firm in Sacramento over the last 25 years. So I'm very proud of that. That's very proud of that, yeah.
No, that's awesome. And, I know, so I guess as you look back on the 25 years, what are some of the things that you're most proud of, right? That Randle has accomplished? I know you've worked on a ton of different projects, and races and initiatives, things like that. But just in terms of things that are memorable, what are some of those?
Man, there's a lot, Josh. In 25 years, we could spend 2 hours on this. I don't want to spend that much time, but a couple of things I think really stand out, which is number one, building something, building a firm, building a team,
And you got a big team, too.
We do,
so.
we do. And I think that we did it the right way, right?
Yeah.
The Nick Saban way, which is I always believed in the Jim Collins good to great philosophy.
Great
how
book.
do you build? Yeah, fantastic
Amazing.
book. But also, as many people forget, there's the build to last, right? You don't want to build it and then it doesn't last. So I was kind of obsessed with those two lanes of building a great firm and building a firm that lasts.
That's great.
But you can only do that if you hire the right people, right?
Yeah.
We've just had such great team members over the years that have, we've had 10 people that have worked for us for 10 plus years. And in this business, it's a tough business. Your family's all in, you're all in. It's not a 9-to-5 business. So I'm really proud of the team of people that came in and the passion they showed and being able to work with them. I could have done something by myself, but I really didn't want to.
Sure.
I've always believed, and I learned this from Pete Wilson, you get more by operating as a team than you do as right?
Totally.
I was impressed with him when he was governor. I'd hear him on the phone or I'd be on a call with him, and he'd be talking to you and he'd say we. Everything was we. It wasn't him. It was we as an administration are doing this. I learned a lot from that.
Cool.
So
that's actually cool.
I brought that. I don't hire I people. I hire we people.
Yeah.
And if somebody in an interview says I, sorry, nice to see you.
Sure.
So I'm proud of the we culture we've created with the team. We've won, a lot of awards that I'm proud of. Sacramento Business Journal, Best Place to Work. We've won a national recognition for that. So I'm super proud of the kind of people we brought, the passion they've showed, and then the sustainability of all of that. And I'm also super proud of the projects we've been involved in. Because when we started, we were like, we want to be involved in big projects. We want to be involved in consequential projects, both at the state level and at the local level. And we've been involved in a ton, if not all the major projects here in Sacramento.
That's so cool.
And big gubernatorial elections like Arnold Schwarzenegger, which was crazy. We can talk about that, but the Schwarzenegger campaign was crazy. But it was, that election was a reform election. It was a I'm as mad as hell election, and that was
100%.
perfect for Arnold. We can talk about it. Super proud of that. And then, all the projects we've been involved in over the years, from the Golden One Center, working on downtown Sacramento with Mayor Johnson.
That's pretty cool. Golden One Center.
Golden One Center is super cool. Worked with Golden One on the naming rights to that, and worked with Mayor Johnson on making. Mayor Johnson told me something back in like 2003. He said, I played basketball when I was in the NBA. That the city that everybody didn't want to come to was Sacramento. Everybody hated coming here.
Wild,
and they would rag on me and tell me, I don't want to go to Sacramento. So we got to change that. So he used that as a drive and a passion to say, we have got to make Sacramento downtown better. And to his credit, he saved the Kings, got the arena.
Yeah, 100%.
So we were involved in that, involved in Major League Soccer, even though we still got to get back to that. We lost that opportunity. We're involved in the Sacramento pitch with West Sacramento now because they're our client. And then we've been involved in some really big consequential public affairs projects. Like we worked for Covered California for 5 years, which, getting people to sign up for quality, affordable health care, really important stuff. A lot of behavioral health work we've done, a lot of mental illness stuff we've done for clients and for coalitions. So I'm really proud of the intersection of the team and the work and the consequential work.
For
we've basically really touched almost everything major in Sacramento. And almost every major issue throughout the state. We have water, healthcare, finance, real estate. Very proud of all that.
That's awesome. No, that's really cool. What would you say is and then we'll jump into, I want to ask you a little about Pete and Arnold and all that stuff, but what would you say was the most challenging campaign or initiative that you had to work on?
Man, they don't hire us because they're easy, Josh.
I don't know.
They don't hire us because they're easy.
If you had to pick one.
There's a lot. I would say it always pops in my head when somebody asks me that. I always go to Arnold first just because I worked on 5 gubernatorial races, but the recall was by far the most unique. I mean, we didn't know he was going to run. We really didn't know he was going to run. I'd worked for him in 2002 on an afternoon school initiative. He had called us about a week before the recall was going to get called and said, I'm not running, guys. Maria's not on board. I'm sorry, but I'll look at it in the future. I thought it was very fair. Okay, you're not running. We were not prepared. And then the night that he announced on Jay Leno that he was running, none of us had any idea.
Wow.
None of us.
That's wild.
Nobody. Everybody thinks, oh, you guys knew. We did not know. I got a call.
Oh, my God.
I got a call from KCRA at like 5 o'clock because they tape early down in L.A. And Frank said, Arnold declared for governor, right? And we were like, no. That was the first I had heard of it.
That's insane.
Yeah. So then I got a call a couple hours later, come tomorrow, Arnold wants to meet you in L.A. I'm like, what's going on here? Private plane shows up.
Yeah.
Next morning, a bunch of us jump on the plane, head to L.A. A quick story on that one, just because it was a blur. I mean, it was 60 days.
Yeah.
So not only
That's
is
nothing.
a gubernatorial campaign 60 days crazy, but you're talking about an international superstar who everybody in the world knows, which, you know, I found that out after working for him in 2002. This guy's unique. Like, people that come to the rallies and everything, they're not interested in politics. They're interested in other stuff. And that was his unique attraction. But that 60 days was crazy. And the first day, we didn't know what to do with them because he had just announced them. Like, we didn't have a plan. We didn't have anything. Yeah. So George Gorton, who was going to run the campaign, told me to go sit with Arnold all day long and make phone calls and call people and say he's running and he has a plan and everything. So I got a view into Arnold Schwarzenegger world like I've never seen. He's, you know, we're sitting like this, and he's taking calls from the president. He's taking calls from Danny DeVito. He's taking calls from rappers. It was crazy. And I'm sitting there, I'm going, I gotta write this down. This is gonna be crazy, you know. And then
write a book.
To your point about what was the most challenging, a 60-day campaign with an international superstar with no plan is pretty insane. I don't think I slept for 60 days. Yeah. But we had a really great team. We basically congregated the Pete Wilson team. Everybody knew their roles. Everybody got into it quickly. Everybody knew it was going to be short term. Yeah. And everybody knew the stakes for saving California were really, really important. And he was the only one that could do it.
Well, and that might be the only opportunity. You know, had he waited,
I think that's true.
I think you missed that moment, right? So,
and I think that's what did it for him because he probably couldn't have won a closed primary. Right. We'll talk about that later.
Totally.
He probably could. This was like the first jungle primary to some extent, right, in California. It was really a jungle primary. Yeah. And to his credit, he performed very well. He's an actor. He's very calm. Yeah. You know, he's taking all these calls from the press, and he's very calm. He's like, I've been through this before. You know, I deal with the entertainment press. Not quite the same. Yeah. But he really performed well, and it was fun to work with him and to see everything from his perspective. I mean, we'd go to movie sets. We were on Terminator 3, you know, doing all this stuff with him. Yeah. It was like such a clash, and in a good way, because I had worked for Pete Wilson for so long. He was the more traditional politician, you know, mayor, U.S. Senate, governor, knew every issue back of his hand, knew every policy, knew how he believed. Arnold's like, give me 3 bullet points. You know, it was like, and he was a marketing genius. So everything was like, he'd come in here and go, move the lights, you know, move this, move that. It was so different and so fun because of that difference.
That's cool.
So I think that's challenging and different. And then I would just say going to more of a traditional public affairs project, Covered California probably is, because you're trying to find a small slice of Californians who aren't uninsured, and you're trying to attract them to get insured. Yeah. So from a public relations and public affairs perspective, the targeting on that, the micro-targeting, fighting those audiences that really, because you're trying to get 2 audiences, those to renew and then those to come onto the rolls for the first time.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Very, very challenging, but very consequential. When you get somebody on those rolls that didn't have health insurance, you feel really, really good about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I still remember that recall. I think, so my mom was really into all that. Yeah. Like, just she was having me make phone calls for Bob Dole when I was a kid, man. I mean, seriously.
I did the same with mine.
I mean, that's like, this is how my mom
Way
was.
to go, Mom. So, I got to call her on Mother's Day next year.
I was sitting in the phone with her, and it was just like hilarious, man. I still remember that stuff, which is really funny. But I think she's got like a wall in her garage of just bumper stickers over the years, and she still has the Dump Davis.
She does. Good for her. Good for her.
Bumper sticker in there, which is just hilarious. And she was. I just remember those debates. They were so wild. Was it Ariana Huffington?
McClintock,
and Arnold McClintock,
Bustamante.
I mean, it was just like so wild. And
Arnold had his pre-planned kind of like
he had all the
Ariana. He had them all, man.
It was like Terminator in the debates.
The team had him really well prepared for that, and he delivered. You know, he delivered.
It was so good. So
it was, for anybody that's into politics, it was the wildest campaign we'll probably ever see. You know, and again, everything condensed into 60 days. When we were down at his, we didn't even have an office. We kind of had to make an office in his Santa Monica office, but we'd have 50 to 100 TV cameras parked outside, just trying to get comment from him or us or whatever. Yeah. And when he filed officially that first day, it was bigger than a presidential presser. It was unbelievable. Cameras from Germany, Europe. I mean, every local reporter, you know, camped out outside of our office. We'd walk out and they'd be shoving, you know, microphones in our face trying to get. The international attention was unbelievable. It really was crazy.
That's wild.
When he was sworn in, of course, the press platform was massive because we had like 50 or 100 TV cameras or something. It was crazy.
Yeah, it's incredible. So, well, what a cool experience. I mean,
it was very interesting.
I would say, I mean, it's kind of on the same topic, but I guess our last opener question, then we'll dive into the election.
Yeah.
Is, what was it like? I mean, you've kind of said a few things already, but what are some of the things you learned serving, in that deputy role under Pete Wilson?
Yeah.
And then did you stick around to work with Arnold after the election too? I mean, was that...
I worked on the outside.
Yeah, okay.
Since I started my firm in 2001.
And how were they different? It just seems like they're very different people.
Different.
Yeah.
Again, Pete Wilson was like the traditional, you had a team of people that were aligned.
Yeah.
Everybody was rowing in the same direction. Great, really committed. Arnold had a more eclectic group of people, right? So he brought in Hollywood people into the horseshoe. He brought in a lot of Democrats. He brought in a lot of Republicans. And he kind of reveled in the clash of ideas. Like, you tell me why you think this, you tell me why you think this, and then I'll make a decision, which is nothing wrong with that at all. It wasn't as seamless of a governor's office as Pete Wilson's was, right? Because Bob White ran a tight ship, man.
Right.
It was like boom, boom, boom. And Arnold's was just different, and that was what he knew. So I think the team struggled a little bit more in the governor's office, and because you didn't know, for Arnold, a lot of the issues were first time for him. Yeah. Like, how do you think about the water deal in LA? What water deal?
Yeah,
Like you got to educate him and teach him
and
and everything. Whereas Wilson came in after being in government for so long, he knew everything about everything, and he was deep. And again, it was fun because it was a contrast, right? And then Arnold's like, I got to get on the road. So, I would say Pete Wilson loved being in the governor's office, doing the dirty work every day. Arnold wanted to be on the road all the time, because that was his strength.
Sure.
But it was his ability to motivate Californians to support things he wanted to support. That was his strength of getting on the road, being the actor. And so it was so different.
Yeah.
But so fun to be a part of both those things. And again, on the governor's, I was on the inside.
Yeah.
Day-to-day grind of being a deputy chief of staff. For Arnold, I was on the outside of the with the political team. Yeah. So we were, we got set up for the 2004 election. So we went straight from 2003 to the 2004 election, the 2005 election, which was the special election, to the 2006 election. So we had 4 elections with him in 4 straight years.
It's crazy.
It was a lot. It was exhausting. And I still think that Arnold might not have intended to run for re-election. That's why he did the special election in 2005 with a bunch of reforms. But since we lost those 4, he decided I need to go on and stay and move forward. So
that's really interesting.
It was really interesting. Yeah. He's never said that. That's just my personal thing, because we really feared having a special election in 2005 after the previous 2 elections. I think that there was voter fatigue on that, and I think that hurt us. But he was in a hurry. As a guy, I want these reforms. They got me elected. I want these reforms.
Totally. And you only get so much time. You can't wait too long. Once you get into that second term, you're sort of a lame duck, people, quickly. So.
And you really, in many ways, you have the first 2 years when you have the most political capital, because you get midterms that cause another problem. I mean, the presidential, which causes other issues for you. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Which, and I don't mind anyway, a guy who's in a hurry to make change, right? Yeah. But you got to make sure it's going to work politically. Yeah.
But California is a tougher case too, because he came in without obviously a legislature that was going to be excited to work with him, right?
Correct.
So I mean, you got to find a way to do it without that, which I think makes it a lot more challenging. So.
And in some ways, the ballot's the only alternative, right? If the legislature's not going to do what you're going to do, you're either convince a bunch of people to do what you want, or you're going to take it to the ballot.
Yep.
And the ballot was, because of his notoriety and persuasion, the ballot was what he thought was the best way at that point.
Yeah, it makes sense. And, it's kind of unique, not solely, but pretty unique to California that you have that option too.
Totally.
You wouldn't necessarily have that. I mean, there's a lot of probably blue states with red governors, but, they don't always have that ability.
100%.
So,
he was a unique character. I mean, character's not right. He was a unique individual in a unique time in California's history. And I know a lot of partisan Republicans don't think he was great, but he really held off. I hate to look at it this way, but he held off a lot of bad stuff from happening. Really, he was he really understood the business climate, education, the core issues that we deal with. He was very on board. He wasn't really interested in being a partisan governor. He wasn't really interested in building the Republican Party. He was interested in doing what he got elected to do.
Yeah.
So it was interesting.
As an outsider, makes sense. Too,
Yeah.
So, it's funny. I was at a conference recently talking about, the next few years, the governor's race, which we'll jump into next. And, I said, I just want a governor, whoever that is.
Yeah, I know what you're going to say.
That will hold the line on the crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
I mean, I want a governor that's going to, obviously you want a governor that aligns with your principles and your priorities and all that. That'd be
100%.
great, obviously too. But we got to hold the line on some of the crazy stuff, because this legislature and it's not even always. I don't want to like paint broad strokes, but it's so imbalanced that anything can pass in this legislature right now, and that's a problem.
Yeah, yeah,
You know?
no, 100%.
And I don't even think that's something that I think that's a problem for all Californians, no matter your party preference or whatever, because a lot of things we're passing doesn't always align, I think, with even the majority of Californians.
I would add one thing to what you just said, which is stop the crazy stuff. But I also want somebody who wants to be governor. Like, quit running for president,
That would be nice.
Because I do think, though, but I think those two things are connected. Because if you want to be governor, you're going to do things that are in the best interest of California.
Totally.
But the current governor's been running for president for 8 years, so every decision has politics associated with it. Therefore, a lot of bad stuff happens.
And it's been very, I would say, apparent that was the case. That
very much so.
Just from how he operates, with being very press focused and really announcement focused versus results oriented.
Right.
And I mean, I think that's what I've seen, at least in the time that I've been here. So
yeah, agreed.
Let's jump into that. I mean, let's jump into sort of postmortem on the primary election here in 2026. I would say one of the weirder primaries when it comes to governor's races. The Republican side, it was like, well, pretty typical. You got a couple guys, one NorCal, one SoCal, sort of trying to get the party endorsement and sort of their party support. But on the Democrat side, I mean, you really had, I would say, no outstanding like rise to the top candidates, and just really no clear idea of who was going to really take the lead. What was your take on it, and what are some of the things you'd be interested in sharing?
Yeah, having done 5 governor's races, I think I haven't kind of probably approach it a little differently. First of all, I would say it was extremely uninspiring for the great state that California is. It was very uninspiring. So that's the first thing I would say, and kind of sad in some ways, since we are this mammoth economy in the country and we should be driving the best candidates. I also think it was bizarre. I mean, it was a very bizarre election. Obviously, the top 2 had a part of that bizarreness. You had the Swalwell stuff. I think if you look back in your Alex Padilla, you're like, why the heck didn't I run? I would have won.
Or
Eleni.
Bonta.
Or Eleni. They could have all won.
These people
and when you look back and Eleni got out in August 2025, I don't know why. She had a chunk of money that the family had put together. I think either one of them probably would have won the race. And Becerra was kind of the last guy standing. And there was there was the massive anti-Steyer coalition out there, anybody but Steyer. So it was kind of like, who's going to be left standing, And I think the race in October, November of 2025 was Katie Porter's to lose, and she lost it. She really lost it. Everybody,
pretty early, I mean.
Really early. And she was never, she ended up at 4%. She never came back. Plus, it also teaches us all, Josh, as you know, in politics, people have to like you a little bit. And nobody likes Katie Porter. I mean, nobody likes Katie Porter. And I think this is where we were talking briefly about the tech community. The tech community way overestimated Matt Mahan's ability to get into this race. You can't get into a governor's race in February. It's massive. It's big.
So I'm going to pause you here.
Please do.
On that point, because I agree with you. I think it was too late. I'm actually friends with Matt. I think Matt's a good guy. I wanted to see him jump in, but at the end of the day, it was like he couldn't make a decision, And so, I mean, would he have had a better shot getting in earlier, or do you think it was more of a candidate issue, or even just a team issue?
No, I think it was a lane issue. I think it was a lane issue. I do think just fundamentally, you got to get in for a year or so. I mean, it's just a massive state, and I think they overestimated their ability. If they had $40 million, they could push them into the top 2. But I think ultimately, as the race played out, there was not a real significant lane. I do think he's a good guy. I think if you looked on the Democrat side, who's the best Democrat for California? It's probably him. But there was no lane. You had to be anti-Trump, and you had to be where the progressive base of the party is.
Totally.
And then you had to have a little bit of establishment support also. And
which he's never really had, even as the governor of San Jose.
And I also think I think he wavered on what first he was anti-Governor Newsom, then he was pro-Governor Newsom. Like, he was swaying back and forth because I think they couldn't figure out what their lane was. So I think Is he a good candidate, a good guy? Does he have a future? Absolutely. Was this the wrong race for him? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I also think it goes to what we've talked about, the tech community. They don't really understand politics. They think they do, but they don't really understand politics. A lot of them think, and I had an experience with this with Meg Whitman's campaign, that the tech communities, a lot of these guys think, hey, man, I started a business. I made a ton of money. I can run for governor, or I can run for a state, or I can do it.
That.
The two things do not meet in the middle. I actually remember when we were doing Meg Whitman's campaign in 2010, she went 2 years. She did it the right way. She looked at the race, should I get in? Obviously wasn't successful, but she looked at me one day and said, you know something? Running eBay is a lot easier than being in politics. My job is a lot easier than your job doing politics.
Right
It really was, because she was like, wow, this is crazy. Silicon Valley and Sacramento are two different planets. And
I will agree with that they're two different planets. I think if you threw me into Run eBay, I don't think it would go nearly as well. So
I don't know. Don't underestimate yourself.
But I mean, I do agree they're two different planets, and it's hard. One of my favorite podcasts, although for the listeners of this podcast, this is the only podcast you should ever listen to.
Of course, this is number one, right?
But I love the All In podcast with Chamath Palihapitiya and all these other guys, and he tried to run for governor at one point, and it's you do think like all you need is money, but at the end of the day, it's so much more than that. And there's so many to your point, coalitions and support, opposition. I mean, it's really intense, even all the way down to the state legislature. So, it's
just fundamentally different. Having built a business, and mine's business is small, but building a business and running for governor or even statewide, they're so different, and very few adapt. Now, what I think they did do smartly, though, was when they started looking at the legislative races, they kind of teamed up with the guys who know how to do it, right? The business community, the chamber, and that was smart, and they were very successful in that regard.
Yes.
So I don't mean to minimize Matt Mahan. I compliment anybody that gets into the sphere and makes the race. But I think he was just from the beginning, it was unlikely to be him. And he's got to come back and look. But the lane was tougher this time. Yeah. And then you had so going back to your question, I think Padilla, Elaney, maybe Bonta, all could have been very competitive. I think Padilla for sure would have won. I think Elaney would have won.
Away,
Bonta a little bit different. But the race became kind of like, well, who's left, right? Katie takes herself out. Mahan's lane wasn't there. Antonio never caught anything. Swalwell just completely fell apart after all the business community, everybody was with him. It's funny because we did a big event for our client, the California Association of Realtors, in March. Mm-hmm. We had kind of the first big gubernatorial forum with all the candidates.
I remember that. I remember that. Yeah.
And Becerra was a side note at that point. He was like an asterisk. They were trying to get him out. Remember?
Way low.
Yeah. He was like at 3%.
Rusty Hicks came out and said to drop out, and
USC had their debate. Didn't even invite him.
I forgot about that.
He didn't even invite him and Antonio. He was so low in he didn't get invited. That was like March and April. So credit to them. I think they were strategic and smart in some ways, and then they were very lucky. They hit at the right time. They went up with a lot of their buys right when Swalwell was collapsing. Everybody was looking around. Nobody really wanted Steyer. Katie had taken herself. Matt didn't have a lane. Antonio never really caught. So he was kind of the only guy standing there. Yeah.
Interesting.
And then the business community got behind him, and the anti-Steyer coalition got behind him. So it wasn't like, and I think also we'll talk about top two in a minute, but he benefited greatly from top two. People were holding their ballots. Mm-hmm. They had heard so much about two Republicans being in the general. A lot of Democrats were holding their ballots and going, we can't let that happen. We got to figure out who's the number one guy. So maybe Becerra wasn't their number one guy. He's probably their third guy or second guy, but they went with him because they had to push somebody through. Mm-hmm. I think the biggest question, Josh, for me out of that race, when you're looking back and you're one of the candidates, I think Steyer probably greatly regrets not elevating Bianco to try to pull from Hilton. Because if he had done that, he'd just, as you know, it was about a 2-point separation between Hilton and Steyer.
He would have made it.
He would have made it. If he had elevated Bianco, pulled from Hilton a little bit. I know the Hilton guys were very concerned about that.
Yeah.
He could have pushed himself into the top two potentially.
Which I just don't get, because we've seen it work so many times. I mean, this is why we have Governor Gavin Newsom, I feel like. I mean, he was very strategic in elevating John Cox.
He was.
I think he was one of the early ones to really use that sort of top two system.
He was.
To benefit himself.
That was the first cycle that people really did.
Antonio Villagrosa is attacking Gavin Newsom. Gavin's like, why would I attack Villagrosa? Let's give John Cox some name ID. So I think I don't know. I'm shocked, honestly, that he didn't, especially with the resources that Steyer had.
Yeah.
He was the perfectly positioned one to do that. I'm honestly glad that he didn't do it.
I am too.
But
I am too.
But at the end of the day, I'm kind of shocked that he didn't, because I think, But I mean, this is a question everyone keeps asking me in sort of the day-to-day that has sort of seen the race from an outsider perspective. How do you spend that amount of money as Tom Steyer and still, I mean, obviously there's a huge negative coalition against him, but I mean, how do you lose this many times and spend this much money?
Yeah,
I just don't understand.
And I do have a perspective on that, having been with Meg Whitman's campaign.
Well, it really
and
shows
she spent
it's not just about the money. Someone has to like
it isn't.
you, right?
And I do have a perspective, because in 2010, when Meg was going to run and she committed to spending a lot of money, the thought was, your money will be an equalizer against all these other forces that spend a bunch of money on the other side. But there's a factor where, this is what I say, it's mind-boggling to me. She spent $168 million in a primary and a general. Steyer spent $250 billion in just a primary.
It's unbelievable.
It is mind-boggling. And then didn't elevate Bianco and all that. He spent all these money on all these things and didn't even do that.
Wow.
It's a lot of money. It's crazy. It shouldn't be that way. And I think strategically that was probably a really huge error on his part. But you do reach a point in these races where you're spending so much money, you're not getting much for it at the end, and voters start to go like, why do you want that? Are you for you or are you for me?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
we faced that in 2010, and I think we probably did a little too much over the summer as opposed to letting people relax before we're getting into the fall. But I think with Steyer, his cap was about 20 or 22%, which is what he's at right now. But at the end, it was like, people just get sick of the advertising, but they wonder what's behind it also in terms of that.
Totally.
And I think he faced that problem at the end. And then he made this, I believe, strategic error not to elevate Bianco.
Well, because at a certain point, your support is capped.
Right.
I mean, that was pretty clear. He could not clear certain numbers the whole time.
That's right.
So your only option is to bring down the other guy.
That's right. And you have the resources to do it.
Yeah.
That's why, they did everything else in terms of when you look at strategically the campaign where they're blowing and where they're going after, they did everything else right, but this was the one they just left up. Like your point, they're capped out. You don't have an option to get to 28 or 29%. Your only option is to pull somebody else down and to elevate. I mean, to pull Hilton down and elevate Bianco, and they didn't do it for whatever reason.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating.
But $250 billion in a primary is mind-boggling. I mean, mind-boggling. It really is.
Yeah, it's hard to
imagine. Yeah.
Honestly.
Now, again, I saw a lot of it in the 2010 race, which 15 years ago.
Yeah.
I can't even conceptualize how much that is. It's so much,
So how do you think this November primaries or this November election is going to go? I mean, obviously early polling, pretty clear. Becerra's the major front runner. People were asking me like, well, how did Pratt lose in LA? It's like, guys, I don't think you understand how blue LA actually is.
5-1,
I have colleagues that get 80% of the vote in their assembly districts. I mean, that's unheard of. I mean, that's you go anywhere else in the country, that's crazy, right? So, it's tough. So
it's tough. I mean,
that's the environment.
Can Hilton get there? It's pushing a hill up pushing a boulder up the hill. It's really tough. I mean, Republican and the other challenge we have for Republican candidates these days is we're losing Republican voters to other states. So our share keeps decreasing. We're at about 25%. But when you're hundreds of thousands of people
sort of like
going to other states, you're just hemorrhaging it.
Yeah.
So that means you got to get more independents and more Democrats. I think Steve ran a very solid campaign, did everything he needed to do. Can he get to 50? It's a massive climb. Lanhee Chen, you might remember, who's a great candidate a couple of years ago.
Friends with Lanhee,
He got to about 45.2. So he there's a little bit of a model there about how he did that.
Yeah.
But even then, that last 5% is really tough. It's really tough. And, turnout will be 55, 60%. You're going to have to attract a lot of Democrats, and you're going to have to get a lot of independents to get out there and vote, which is not a huge history of them doing that in our state. And the race is so partisan. And right now I'm a little worried in that terms. Not worried for Hilton, meaning the passion is right now on the D side, not on the R side. So there's some work to do. I think he's very smart. It's almost like a guerrilla marketing campaign. He's kind of got to run a Pratt-ish kind of campaign. He really does.
Get creative, right?
He has got to get creative.
Yeah.
And he's got to talk about things that aren't traditional to a race, like regulatory reform out the window. Focus on three things that people are seeing in their communities, homeless, whatever it might be, crime, and convince people it doesn't have to be this way. Because California is a great state, has been a great state, it can be a great state again.
Totally. Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I actually talked to Lonnie maybe a year after that race.
Yeah.
And, I think he raised something like $30 million, but he was like, I would have really needed a lot more than that. Just to really keep up with, and that was even, what was that? That was secretary, or that was controller.
Yeah.
State controller. And so it's already like a race that people don't really pay attention to.
Yeah.
So
that's why it opens the door a little bit, but you need more money.
But exactly.
You need more money.
So it's it's just really interesting.
It's, like I said, a Republican candidate could probably get 38 to 42% of the vote, but that last 7, 8, 9% is just really hard. You got to attract a lot of Democrats. It's funny, I was looking the other day at the maps of California in 1990 when Wilson was elected, and then recently here. The map is basically the same. It's all coast for the Democrats, and it's the L for the Republicans. There's just less Republicans now than there were, and there's more coastal Democrats now. So it's a huge challenge. I do think Steve's a smart guy. He ran a solid campaign, so we'll see how he does.
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting to watch, and I think either way, he'll make it interesting. The funny dynamic between him and Becerra is I think Becerra is just so. The personalities are very different.
Very different.
And I think Steve has at least he exudes more confidence, in my opinion, in his ability to communicate his message. And so that could get interesting if they ever have debates or anything. But
it'll be interesting to see what kind of campaign Becerra runs. Does he just play it totally safe and do one debate and not do much media, or does he really kind of try to spike the ball a little bit and really drive up a big margin? Because in my view, that's the smart thing to do, because the bigger margin you have, the more political capital you build, right?
Yeah,
if you run an aggressive campaign and you win by a big margin, you've got a lot of power in that corner office. That corner office has a lot of power, especially when you have super majorities.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, I will say, just to end this topic, we can keep talking about governor stuff as we move into the reform conversation too, but he did interestingly spend more time than I've seen a Democratic candidate do, really speaking to the business community in the primary, right? Talking about how we need Chevron in California,
energy
right?
Stuff,
We need energy. Like yes, we want to move off of oil down the road, but we need it right now, and we can't run these companies out of California. I was shocked to hear that from him, right? Stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So is that a primary thing? Was that a temporary thing? Or does he actually mean that? That's one of the things that I'm really curious about, as we move forward.
I think you're right. And I think it'll be interesting if you and I got together in 2 years and said, here's what Becerra said in the campaign, which was fairly moderate for some Democratic candidates. And then he's 2 years as governor. Did he stick to that, or did he get captured by the more progressive wing of the party and the supermajorities?
Which is very possible.
That's very possible.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting in 2 years to see. And hopefully, again, he's not running for president, so he will be doing the things that are right, and he'll realize he has one reelect, which shouldn't be that tough, and he should do the right things for California. And I was happy to see what he said about oil and gas in California, because we can't afford what's been happening.
Well, yeah, and I just think it would be great, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, as governor, to sort of do those common sense things and just not get wrapped into the, I would say, more extremist policies that the legislature is much more open to, because it's just a different environment.
Yeah.
But the governor has to be the adult in the room sometimes.
Totally. And as obviously, the good governor will just stop stuff from even coming to his desk, right? Just stop, bottles it up. I don't want to see this crud. Leave it there, and then it's a clean bill package at the end.
Yeah.
And that's the power. The governor has the total power to do that. I hope he takes that power to really fend off the crazy stuff.
Yeah, it's really interesting, because he doesn't need to change that message at this point. He's the guy for on that side. So, it's just like he's already got the nomination. He doesn't really need to pander to the farther left at this point.
He'd be smart not to. Actually,
He'd be smart not to. So I'd love to see that hold up. But I'm just really curious what he actually chooses to do.
Me too. And again, what kind of campaign he runs, right?
Yeah. Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the Chamber of Commerce just came out and endorsed him, which is I think one of the first times that's happened.
I know some people aren't happy about it, but I think for them it was the reality of the race.
Sure.
And
so
hopefully that helps moderate. And my biggest hope is that he just doesn't change on, and granted, he's very liberal, obviously, but on some of these key business positions, let's hope he stands firm.
Yeah,
because as you said, he doesn't have to change. So don't do it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So let's just chat briefly. I mean, a lot of election reforms over the past couple decades in California. The ones that I think about the most, I mean, we already kind of mentioned the top 2 primary system. I think that has, had definite impacts, right? And I have mixed feelings on it, but I do think that it came with some positives.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, there's been some challenges as well, depending on your perspective. We obviously adopted and then unadopted the Independent Redistricting Commission for at least 2 redistricting cycles. And then I know we have longer legislative term limits than we used to have. Used to be you could spend 6 years in the Assembly, 8 years in the Senate, which I guess is a total of 14. But a lot of people wouldn't make that jump. So you're really only there for 6 years. Now it's 12 years combined. How do you feel about these reforms, sort of, I guess, how they've worked?
Yeah.
Or have they worked as intended?
Yeah.
And like, what is the future of these reforms? Because we're seeing, obviously, Prop 50, which is a huge step back, in my opinion, on independent redistricting, which actually I think was very unfortunate. And then you see an initiative now filed to get rid of the top 2 primary system. Does that get momentum? Does that actually happen? So curious on your perspective.
Yeah, just kind of taking those one by one. I don't know if you saw today, George Skelton wrote a really interesting column where Abel Maldonado, who was one of the architects of the top 2, basically said it hasn't worked. And I kind of feel like that right now, too.
Interesting.
So, Abel said, I don't think it's worked.
He did come out and say that.
He did. He said that.
Because he pushed for that.
He pushed really hard. He held up a budget, as you know, to get that,
That.
right?
Yeah.
Abel wasn't messing around. And,
No.
and I admire where Abel and Governor Schwarzenegger were coming from. The intent was good, but I just don't think it's played out that way. There's nothing to demonstrate it's played out that way. And I think Abel kind of maybe the last one to actually say, you're right, it hasn't worked. And I think all of us are frustrated. I mean, there's probably some good that comes from it. What I hate the most I just think, like, if you're a Republican, you want to vote for a Republican, you should be able to vote for a Republican. Mm-hmm. What I hate is the gaming that's come into it. People spending money, trying to elevate candidates, as you've talked about. That takes away what we're really trying to do with our democracy, right? So I think that he's proposing now top 2, 1 Democrat, 1 Republican. That may solve some of the problems. I think we're probably going to end up at a closed primary, which we were back to 2010.
So he's saying that would be preferable to a closed primary. So you still have an open primary.
Open primary, top down, top Dem, top R. I think that's worthy of discussion. I think the reality means we'll probably end back up at a closed primary, because I think the forces are pushing in that direction right now. And it will take significant money not to get it there. So I think it's unfortunate. I think everybody gave it a good shot. And the last couple of years, it's just, to me, maybe 2020 on, when there was so much money gaming it out and trying to elect your candidate over this candidate. Yeah. Wrong. Not supposed to be that way. So I think that's...
When you can't really prevent that, right?
You can't. You can still do it in a closed primary, but it's totally different, right? Yeah. And I think we'll probably end up back at closed primaries. And it's too bad, because I think the intent was good, and to moderate the electorate, or to moderate the legislature, hasn't really worked in that regard, I would say.
Interesting.
How do you feel about it?
Well, I think the goal, I think you're right. The goal was, in theory, right, you'd get more moderate candidates. Yeah. If you had 2 Democrats in a race, 2 Republicans, then the other side of the aisle would gravitate to, the more moderate one, I guess, right? And then you would have a little bit more reasonableness in the legislature. I love the goal of that, particularly because our legislature is so imbalanced and not moderate, or not even, I don't know. It's pretty out of whack. So I do love the idea in theory, but it is curious. I mean, has it worked? I'm not sure it has. The thing that I always question is, Republicans, at least the ones I talk to, right? They don't want to vote for a Democrat.
Right.
They're really serious Republicans. There are Republicans that would be willing to pick the one they like the best, but there's a lot of Republicans out there that just will not vote. And I think that's kind of the question, and I'm sure it goes both ways. This is just so like, do people actually go out and vote for someone of the other party and do the research and put the time into So I don't know. I don't know what the data shows.
An interesting point. because this isn't going to change by the general election, obviously, but let's take two races, for instance. You got Ken Calvert and Young Kim, two Republicans going against each other. Are Dems going to vote in that race, or are they going to say, I don't want to vote for a Republican?
Yeah, do you spend your time going after them and the independents, or do you spend your time going after the Republicans?
And Young Kim's going to have to try to go attract those Democrats. Is she going to be? So it's going to be an interesting experiment for her, especially in such a partisan environment. Same thing in Sacramento when you've got Doris Matsui going against Mae Vang, right? Yes, are Republicans going to weigh into that race?
We're going to have two really interesting case studies there.
So it's going to be interesting case studies. For me, like, I just want to, I want to vote for who I want to vote for. But I think, so that's an issue. I think most Republicans, most Democrats want to vote for the person they want to vote for.
Right.
I think, I didn't love the idea, like in this governor's race, people were holding their ballots and holding it just because of the process, right? They were holding it to see, who should I vote for late just because he's the last guy standing or whatever, not a great way to do it.
Not because of who I like.
I know who I like, right? I don't like the policy positions. It was, people were clearly holding their ballots to see how it played out. So I don't like any of that, and I really don't like the millions and millions of dollars going in trying to dictate who an incumbent can't have as their opponent. I absolutely hate that. So I think we'll see if Abel's idea has merit. I think it has merit and should be discussed for sure. I don't think it's had its intended effect, even though the intended effect was very important and would have been good for California.
Yeah,
and from a standpoint of more moderate candidates.
Well, and you also had a lot of situations, right, like Senate District 4, right, where
exactly,
you had too many people run in one party, and then you end up with two Democrats in a district that's extremely red.
Conservative district, that's right, yeah.
I mean, that kind of stuff is pretty wild. Now, you could say that, people should have played that a lot differently, or the party should have played that differently, whatever you want to say.
Yeah, exactly.
But at the end of the day, that doesn't really make top two popular with
That's right,
with people in certain one side or the other, right?
And then the crazy part is she comes, she changes parties, and then she loses, right?
Which, I mean,
you're like, what the
I
heck?
don't even know what's going on. Like, it's just unbelievable. It's
crazy stuff.
I mean, that's a wild case study in itself. Have we seen that happen the other way yet? I don't know if we have.
I don't think so. The same type of thing.
Yeah,
I don't
just
think
like
so.
Too many Democrats running in.
Well,
but anyway.
There's been a couple close times.
Yeah.
2014 in the controller's race was this slight low turnout, almost two Republicans almost snuck through, but I don't remember another high profile one where two have snuck through. I mean, obviously, then other than like a safe district like Calvert versus Young Kim.
Right. What about independent redistricting? I mean, what do you see?
I just think that's the most important reform.
Are we saving it? Are we going back to it?
We can't go back. So let me tell you a quick story on that. So when I was working, again, sorry for that old guy stories, but when Wilson came in 1990, of course, the census was done, and we had to go do independent. He was, the districts in the 80s were crazy. I mean, they were drawn from the north to the south to pack as many Democrats in as possible. And he's like, we're not going to do that again. We've got to go change. We've got to make the districts fair. So it was interesting because I was one of the lead people on working with him to get this done. And there was so much bipartisanship in the legislature those days that they wanted a deal that we didn't want, right? Yeah. Because everybody was looking to protect themselves. The Dems were looking to protect themselves. Sure. The Reaps were looking to protect themselves.
Of course.
So we learned a lot of lessons about that. In the end, some of the Republicans were the biggest opponents of what we were trying to do because we wanted fair districts. So smartly, he vetoed.
That makes it hard.
It does, and it was smart. And man, it was the first 2 years dealing with the budget and dealing with redistricting were probably the things that took the most time. And I was the lead on the redistricting, putting the coalition together. And I mean, a lot of the Republicans were our biggest opponents to the whole thing because they just wanted safe seats, and we wanted fair seats. So so Wilson vetoed it. The state Supreme Court ended up drawing the maps, which were fairly fair in those days, and the districts were fair and they
better
were compact.
Than the 80s.
100%. Yeah. They were fair and compact and led to real voters' votes were respected, which is what my thing is. Don't disrespect my vote. Put me in a district that's next to my community. So I come down from that standpoint. I just think redistricting is the most important reform. And I thought that 2008, 2010 ballot initiatives were very important. And of course, I hate it, as it sounds like you do, obviously, what happened with Prop 50.
It's horrible.
It's just such disrespect for the voters. It's
and honestly,
awful.
Regardless of party, I think, whatever state, gerrymandering, which is all of them, or like most of them.
Yeah.
Both sides want it. I mean, this is the thing with incumbents, right, is they don't want to run in competitive races.
Right.
So
they just don't.
There is a just institutional pushback against anything that would create fair districts.
They don't want to run in competitive races, and they want the next race preset for them.
Correct.
Right. So they're thinking about their current race, and then they're thinking about their next races. And that's just the wrong way to look at how you draw districts for voters. So I'm not a big fan of the nationwide redistricting halfway through the decade. I just think that's not probably the smartest way to do it.
What about a nationwide, what about a national requirement moving forward? I mean, what do you think about that?
I actually would probably be for that, to have some standard or something, because it's just, this way is not going to work well. It's just not working well.
Yeah, because it's almost like mutually assured distrust. Like, you almost need... It is. You almost need everyone on board, or nobody wants to be on board.
You can't have it halfway, which is like it is right now. And it's just not good for the voters. It's not good for our democracy. It's not good for elections. All of it's bad. So, as you know, redistricting is not sexy for the voters. They don't really understand it. It takes a lot of explaining. So I give, Arnold and Charles Munger a lot of credit for getting those 2 ballot initiatives passed. Josh, I really hope we go back to the independent commission after 2030, because this Prop 50 and doing this permanently is really just really bad for the voters of California.
I mean, do you think we do?
It's really bad for the North State. No, I do not. I said, I hope. I just hope we don't end up there with the state seats, too. That's what I really am concerned about.
I agree with you.
Regardless of party, regardless of politics, it's just bad. It's just bad. It's not the way it should be. I feel terrible for the North State voters who aren't going to be represented at all for the most part. It's just in Congress. It's just really bad. So I think what Arnold and Munger did and Wilson did was the right thing to do, regardless of party. Put me in a district that your vote matters, and it's connected to people in your community. I think on the term limits, I'd be interested in your view of that. I mean, it came about because of Willie Brown. Willie Brown was the poster child for term limits, and I got to see a lot of Willie Brown, and he was a master. And frankly, if there weren't term limits, he'd probably still be speaker. That guy was a master.
Fair. Yeah, that's fair.
So Wilson endorsed it in 1990 during his race, and kind of helped push it over the line, because he felt like none of us really wanted people to be politicians for their entire life. They should have other experiences. So I think there's some good and bad that we can talk about with regard to term limits. I think redistricting is the most important reform, though, and the one that we've got to stick to.
Of these three, I would agree with you. I think just in terms of just like ensuring like the actual fairness of the democracy. And
correct.
I would definitely agree with that. And you know what? I'm just going to say this just as someone who has to do this all the time. But I think more competitive districts are actually better from a governance standpoint.
For sure.
I think there's obviously politicians always want to have a safe reelect and all that stuff. But I think it allows you to dismiss certain things when you're actually governing. You don't have to worry about the other side's perspective quite as much, because you don't need their vote, so to speak, right? Whereas if you have a competitive district, I always actually tell people, I wish everyone for at least one cycle could represent a purple district, because it's a totally different perspective, and you have to actually listen to everybody, and you have to actually talk to all of your constituencies and figure out where they're at. And it changes how you govern. And I think in a way that is more, I don't really know the best way to put it, but it's a little more inclusive, right? And
you're the poster child for that, right? I mean, your district is a classic swing district.
100%. Like, this is how we do it every day in my district.
But you have to think through every single vote you take, right? And the people in the safe districts just don't. They go to the checkbook of, is this D or R or whatever, and they make the vote. And it lacks then the real discussion of good policy and what's important. Wilson was governor. We had like 35 R's in the assembly. I mean, and we had a lot of competitive seats. So there was a big swing seats for Democrats, and it led to better outcomes. It just did. It led to better outcomes because people had to discuss issues that they wouldn't have to discuss if they're in a safe district. And you've mastered that. You're in a tough swing district.
But I just think it changes your perspective, a little bit.
Sure it does.
And it makes you kind of think through things a little differently. So
having to run for re-election and really present yourself to the voters is really important. Not just it's a D versus R. I'm in a 60-plus district. I don't have to do anything. That's not good either for legislature. Totally. It's not good for our voters. It's not good for California. Having races like yours, I know it's tough every 2 years. But you have to perform for the voters, right? And you're every 2 years, you got to go tell the voters here what I did. I think that's good for us. I think that's good for California.
For sure. No, I agree. All right, well, I got to get you out of here, Jeff. I really appreciate you coming on. Before I let you go, this will be my final question. Any big predictions over the next 5 to 10 years in California politics.
Oh man!
And any other final thoughts you might have as we dismiss you today?
I wish I could come up with a big prediction. I think the census for 2030. I think the question is going to be really important about: are we going to end up back with an independent commission? Because I think that's so important. I think the races in November will probably play out like we think they're going to play out right now for the most part. I think, Gavin's going to run for president. There's no question about that. Is he going to be the nominee? I think he's probably top 3 right now.
Top 3's not bad.
I think top
him.
3. Yeah. It's always bad to be the leading candidate right now, though, this early. I think she is.
Wow.
I think she is. I think no other reason to explain passing on governor, although she had an answer this morning that was crazy. But I do think she's in the low 20s, and she's got a coalition of people that want her to run.
Wow.
I think Ossoff is a potential in Georgia if he wins. So it's going to be, I think the primary for president 28 is going to be wild. It's going to be wild.
On all sides,
On
right?
all sides.
Do you think on all sides? Yeah.
On all sides. I think probably on the Republican side, I think highly unlikely JD just has the race to himself. So I think there's going to be other candidates there too. Yeah. It's going to be wild, though. So I wish I could give you a big prediction.
Oh, no, it's okay. But I think the one you already gave is pretty big, which is you think independent redistricting might go away in California but wouldn't they have to proactively end it? I mean, it's supposed to come back right now, right? So
there's nothing that would stop them, though. That's what scares me.
That's the hard part, right?
That's what scares me, right? Yeah. I just don't want it to. We've got it split the baby right now. I don't want to see it to go away on the state side.
Well, and they made it so easy with Prop 50, and I think that's one of the things that really concerns me the most is how easy it was to basically make the argument that we need less fair districts.
Yeah.
I mean, or that we should give legislature of all people the power to draw districts.
Generally, the history of the legislature is when they make decisions like that, they don't go back. I mean, whether it's a tax increase or whatever, right? They always say it's temporary, but they generally don't go back. So that
and why would you go back when you're the ones that gained the advantage? Right. I mean, are 4 or 5 people going to just give up their congressional seats because I guess my 4 years are up, and
that's right. That's exactly right. That's the thing, right? The implications of it, though, are massive for the future with regard to Congress and the 2030 census and everything. So it's you did a great job. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate it.
Jeff, as always, thanks so much. This is going to be one of our summer episodes, so it's a little off topic for, we normally are talking about day-to-day legislative stuff, but I really appreciate you giving us a great perspective on the election side of things. For people that have ideas about the podcast, you can email pointoforderpod@gmail.com. Obviously follow on socials at pointoforderpod, myself on X at Joshua_Hoover. And then you can follow Randle Communications on X at RandleCom with 2 M's. You can also visit randlecommunications.com to learn more about the firm. But Jeff, thanks so much for coming. And
thank you, Joshua.
It was
a lot of fun.
Time.
A lot of fun.
See you later.
Thank you.